everyone. This is the fifth video of developing an entire eShop web application. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how the forget password option works in this website. It's a special but very important feature that really helps users reset their passwords safely. This is the forget password. Like right now, I'm going to introduce you the features. Let's start from the signing page. Actually, sometimes users really forget their own passwords, right? And that's totally a normal incident. So instead of creating a new account, they can simply click on the forget password link. When they click it, the page asks for their registered email address. Once they enter it and click submit, something really cool happens behind the scenes. So now I'm going to show you the code. This is my index.php file, and you can see this is my sign in box, the design, and this is the link that I have created to show the forget password option. So this is the way how I have called the function forget password to the PHP file, which I already coded in the JavaScript. I have created a class called call6 according to the bootstrap grading method and text_n, and then I have created an href inside an anchor tag by giving a class called link primary and then a text called forget password. So this is what you can see here, the result of the code lines. It's a link, see? Alright, now let's take a look at the JavaScript function that runs when user clicks the forget password option. So this is my script.js file, and you can see this is the code lines that I have created for the forget password option. So this line, so I would like to explain you this line. So actually, what does this line do? This really gets the user's email. So here you can see, if I go to the index.php file and show you, and you can see the email here. So this is the input field of the email, and I have given an ID called email too, so that easy for us to catch this particular input field from the JavaScript side. So this is the sign in page, and this is the email field that belongs to the sign in page, and that's the reason why I give it as a 2. Again, let's get back to the JavaScript, and now here JavaScript captures the input field with its ID called email too, and the email that's already being inserted into the field will be stored in a variable called email, and then this email actually gets the email the user entered into the sign-in form. We will then send this email to the server to check if it exists in the database or not. What I have done here is I have created a request, a new XML HTTP request. This is Ajax method. So I'm sending this request, which means the email, to the server side using this Ajax method. So actually the reason why we create an Ajax request is to allow us to talk to the backend PHP file without loading the page. Right? That's the basic reason why we use Ajax to this process. And you can see the request already state change, and in previous video also I explained you about what this function means. This is an anonymous function, a function which we really create only in special environmental conditions. Since this is a special environmental condition, we use an anonymous function. So these lines, so I have used an if condition just to check some conditions, and it states, and this is handling the server response. These functions listen for a response from the server. When the PHP file finishes running, it sends back a message, usually something like success, or if it fails, an error message. This is what it happens inside this lines. So here again we have used an if condition to check the existence or the presence of the email, which means we use this if condition to check the existence of the email. If the response, if whatever the response we get from the server side is success, alert this particular message, verification code sent to your email, please check your email. Lines particularly says, if the server says success, that means the email exists and the verification was sent. Then the user gets an alert message and a pop-up box. This pop-up, or simply we call it as a model, lets them enter their verification code and new password. Suppose if the email is invalid, if the response we get is something negative, what happens? So if the email isn't registered or there's a problem, there's some sort of problem, the system displays an error message on the screen. No page reloaded needed. So this is what happens in here. Finally, in the JavaScript, this forget password section, this else statement, these two. Document.getElementById message 1 in HTML response eblock. So I explain you this part. This is what the negative response is. And these two lines finally. So this is sending the request. This request by the get method from or by using get method. There are two methods called post and get. So among those two, we're using this get method. So this line literally sends the email to the backend PHP file called forget password process.php. So we need to create a file already so that it's easy for us to see the result. Then that file is the one that actually generates a verification code and sends the email using PHP mailer. So basically this JavaScript function connects a front end and back end. It takes the user's email, calls a PHP file, and if everything goes well, it shows a model where they can reset the password. But if it's wrong or if there's an error, then the process completely messes up. It makes the process smooth and professional without refreshing the entire page. So this is what happens in script.js file or simply JavaScript function. And in index.php, we have called that. This is what we have called. So we'll see what happens. So here I came back to the sign in box, and then let's clear this email and stuffs, and then click forget password and see what happens. So simply they are asking us a email address. They're asking us to enter an email address, so for the purpose of validation. So I'll give them a random email address. I'll give this one, which we already have in database. So I'll show you my database as well. So eShop, and then I have the user data, and you can see this is my database. So I gave this email here, and then let's go to forget password. And when we click this forgot password, we are getting a text or a pop-up message called verification code sent to your email. Please check your email. Like when we go back to our JavaScript and see this exact message or an alert is given here. We are getting it. So when we click OK, and when we click OK, we are getting a model. Forgot password, new password, retype password, and verification code. So the earlier pop-up alert said the verification code has already sent to your Gmail account. Now I'll go back to my Gmail account and see whether any verification code is there for us. Right. Now I'm here in my Gmail workspace, and you can see your verification code is, we have get some polls, show some random letters, numbers, etc. So this is the verification code. So let's get back to the get back and type a password. So let's go back to our database and see what's the current password of this particular Gmail account. That is 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So yeah, so the new password, so I'll give so once again, let me show you. I'll give you a random mail address for this, and then I'll click forget password. It takes a few seconds. Verification code sent to your email. Please check your email. So let's click OK, and then you can see a model pops up. Let's go to our email and see whether we have get a verification code or not. Yes, now I'm here in my email, and you can see I have I've got one. The verification code is some random characters. So I'll copy this and go back to my eShop and paste the verification code here, and then type a new password. So previously we'll see what my password. Right, I'm here at my database, and this is the email that I entered, and you can see this is a former password that I gave. And then let's go back to our web page, and I'm gonna give the verification code once again and type the new password. So I'll give 333 this time, so show we can hide and we can show, we can do both, and then retype. So for this I will copy and paste it, and let's click show and see. Yeah, let's give them hide and click on the reset button. Password change successfully. To verify this furthermore, let's go back to our database and see. So we are here in our database. So you can see this is a former, like this is the password before changing it, and now I'll give a refresh and see the way how it changed. So now you can see we have updated the password, or we can say we have changed the password into something new. So you can see previously we didn't have any verification codes here. Instead we had this thing called null, but now we have the verification code which was sent from the particular email. So that's how the process works. So previously I explained you only about the index.php file and my JavaScript file. And now I'm going to explain you about progress part password process.php file. So literally the purpose of the script is to send a password reset verification code to a user's email address when they forget their password. So that's literally the basic purpose of this file. And here I have imported necessary files for this process. The first one is connection.php. I have included that because this connects the script to the database. And the other three files are PHP mailer libraries file that handles sending email through Gmail SMTP. And this particular line says that uses the PHP mailer namespace use PHP mailer, PHP mailer, PHP mailer. So actually this line tells that PHP that you will be using the PHP mailer class from the PHP mailer library, right? So here the email is received through a get request form, get method from the front end, like from a form where user types their Gmail, and then it will be stored in a variable called email. This is we're using an if condition to validate the email input. So here it checks whether the email input is empty or not. If, see, we are using if conditions to check a condition. The email field is empty. Later, it shows an error message. So these lines checks if email that is entered by you or by any users exist in the database. So we use a simple query to search the email that's stored in this variable, which means the email that you enter to the email field. And once it's searched, so the number of rows will be stored in another variable called n, which means number. And we're using an if condition once again to check this condition as well. Suppose if the number of rows is equals to 1, then generate a random unique string, like the verification code we saw earlier, using different characters like numbers and letters together. So it generates a unique ID, okay, just some random characters, and it will be stored in this variable called code. So simply this line says, so this line, which means the number, this variable equals to 1, so which this means the user exists. The email that you entered is already existing in the database we have. Okay, if there is a user, generate a code, a random code, a unique ID, and store it in this variable called code. This is what happens within these two lines, this condition and the line inside the condition. Suppose if it's 0, which means there is no any users. So it will generate an error message called invalid email address. Okay. So whatever the ID which is generated by this function, it acts as a reset verification code. Okay. So here this line stores the code in the database. This IUD stands for insert, update, and delete. So this is the code, and we can see the query. So simply this line saves the unique code inside the user's record in the database, which means in here, in this line. And these ones, these are email codes. So configure PHP mailer sent to the email. This actually sets up the PHP mailer to use Gmail's SMTP, which means email sending service. So for this, we must use an app password instead of your real Gmail password. And next. So here, the mail, the set form. So I have given the same email address for both, but if you want, you can change it too. So here, the set form says who's sending the email, like who is the person sending the email. So that address should be given here in this area. And the next one, add address. Add address is who's receiving the email, the person who's receiving it. Subject, the title of the email you're sending. So is HTML true? This line, it says allows you to send HTML formatted emails like colored text, headings, etc. is allowed to send in these emails. Like it's literally like giving a format. So this one, the body content, it writes the email content. Like you received an email, the format of the email. See, H1 style color green. Like if you want, you can change this to blue, yellow, whatever the colors you want. And this is a text. Your verification code is simply, this is the format they're describing. See, the text is green in color, and you can see your verification code. This is a text, and this is a code generated. This is the format they're talking about. So here once again we have an if condition to check whether the verification code is sent successfully or failed. So if the mail is not sent, if it fails to send the verification code, the echo, the message, there will be a message called verification code sending failed. And if it was the other way around, if the mail was successfully mailed to you, then the text called echo will be, the message success will be echoed. So here, finally, if the user didn't type any email and left the input field empty, so this gives a friendly reminder called invalid email address. Or please enter your registered email address. So this is a friendly reminder. So if I come up with a summary of this explanation script, that is forgot password process.php, actually this PHP code checks whether the user's email exists in the database or not. If it does, it generates unique verification codes, saves it in the database, and sends that code to the user's Gmail using PHP mailer. So this is what happens. The user will then use the code to verify their identity and reset their passwords securely. This is what happens. Actually, this is for the basic process of this forgot password.php file. So finally, I'm moving to reset password process.php file. So like in the previous files, you can see here also the connection.php file is included to make sure that these files are clearly connected to the database. So the purpose of the script is to understand that PHP code resets the user's password after verifying the code that was sent to their email. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what's included in this file. So here we have created a few variables. See, email, new password, reset password, verification. And then we have some values coming from a page using the post method. So once we get whatever the value through this method, it will be stored in this variable. This is what basically happens in this formatted codes. The user's registered email will be here using the post method, and then the user's registered email will be stored in this email variable. And here the new password that we typed is stored here using the post method and then stored in this variable called new password. And here the retype password, or simply we call it as a confirmation password, will be carried here using the post method, and it is stored in the variable called reset password. So this is a short form to say reset password, and this is a short form to say new password. And then finally we have the verification code. The code that we received by the email will be brought here using the post method and stored in this verification variable. And we are using an if condition to check a certain condition. We'll see what this is. If these two entered passwords are different from each other, if the new password and this retype passwords are different from each other, there will be an error message popping up called password does not match. This is what happens here. Or else, suppose if these two are equal, if you type 123 here and 123 here, it's correct. But if you type 123 here and 1234 here, that's wrong. Then you are seeing a message called password does not match. But if you give the correct password in both the fields, this is what happens. Now I'll explain you what happens then. So if these two passwords match, or if there is a user in the database with the email and that same verification code, okay, it checks this, whether we have a user with the same verification code, and the number of rows will be stored into this num variable, and we're using an if condition to check a certain condition here. If there is a user with the same email and with the same verification code in the database, I'll go back to this part again and explain you. So here, if which means if the num variable is equals to 1, means the email and the code matches, so which means it's a valid. Otherwise the code is wrong or expired. Maybe you made a mistake there, or maybe it's expired. So it says if the code is correct, update the password. So if the verification code is correct, update the password. So this is how we update the password using queries. See, update the user table, set the password table or password column to new password, where the email is the email which we give here. This is what the query says. And then if this process happened successfully, then they're asking this, then it will echo this term called success. So once they print the word success, meaning the reset worked, which means the process is successful. Don't worry about it. if the code is invalid or if there is an error, if no matching record was found, it will show an error message called invalid verification code. So going back to the file and explaining the summary of this page as well. So says this script resets the user's passwords. It first checks if the two entered passwords really match, then verifies if the emails and verification codes are correct in the database. If everything is valid, it updates the user's password. This is what happens in this reset password.php file. So that's how the forget password features work. The user requests a reset, then a verification code is sent to the email. Then they enter the code and create a new password. Then all of a sudden they can sign back and register again securely. So this is what happens in this entire forgot password process. Thank you.